There's nothing like it on the market today.
It's, the ultimate combination of engineering, science, art, and design all pulled together.
Vehicross shouts, go farther.
The concept for the Vehicross originated back prior to the 1993 Tokyo Motor Show. At that time, SUVs were just coming onto the market, and they definitely were taking on the flavor of a family wagon. So the Vehicross sought to take what was quickly becoming a family-type vehicle and provide the performance and exhilaration of a sports car.
And the reaction from the public and the press was nothing short of astounding. Isuzu received many hundreds of phone calls, letters saying, please build this, I want to have this, I really got to have this. Not only from customers, but even from the automotive press actually pushed Isuzu quite hard to take this to production. I think that the response to the Vehicross show car was so positive because it really spoke to a need that hadn't been fulfilled yet.
Once Isuzu saw how positive of a response the Vehicross was receiving, the president, Mr. Ino, decided that the Vehicross would be brought to the market not in the typical fashion of bringing a new model to market.
Anytime we develop a new vehicle, it is a significant investment. We're talking about several hundreds of millions of dollars and 200 to 300 people to go through this kind of a process. Another very common part of developing a vehicle from prototype or show car all the way to production is we'll do a lot of focus groups and clinics along the way. And that gives everybody kind of that really warm, fuzzy feeling that, oh, this is going to be okay in the market because we already know what people think. Well, we just didn't have the time to do that. So we really had to trust the instincts of the interior and exterior designers and just follow kind of their heart all the way through the process.
So a ZIP team, as it was called, was created. And that was basically a cross-functional team. Rather than having hundreds of people working on the development of a new vehicle, this team consisted of only 10 to 12 people. And they were given the mandate to make this feasible, to make this happen.
Another advantage of having such a small group responsible for the entire development and production of the vehicle was it was much easier for them to remain true to the original concept. There was significantly less possibility of that concept being lost or watered down over time.
When the Vehicross was launched in the Japanese market in the spring of 1997, it had a tremendous response.
People were lining up initially to try to get an order in, to try to get their vehicle. There were lots of rave reviews from the press, and as a testament to this, the vehicle won several awards throughout the course of that year, culminating in 1997 Japan's Car of the Year award, which is very interesting considering that this is a truck company coming from an SUV background, and I think that really speaks to the vehicle's success in terms of crossing over between a high-performance SUV and a high-performance sports car. One of the consequences of most of the manufacturing techniques right now is that you need to build, tens of thousands of any one vehicle to support the development, to support the cost, to support the manufacturing. And we realize, this is not appropriate for the Vehicross. The Vehicross is not for everybody. We wanted to find a way to make this vehicle in relatively low volumes that would satisfy the demand and still be affordable.
As innovative as the Vehicross is, both from the concept, the styling, performance attributes, the development with the ZIP team, an integral part of bringing this vehicle to market is the manufacturing.
Isuzu utilized a fairly unique process within the industry to create the final dies that are used to stamp the sheet metal. The most expensive aspect of developing a vehicle and bringing it to market are the tooling costs. Traditionally, these dies are made out of steel or zinc alloy. They take about 6 weeks to produce per die. An average vehicle requires somewhere around 30 dies, and they cost between $1.5 to $3 million a piece per die. These economic factors did not lend themselves well to what we wanted to do with Vehicross. Isuzu, in the meantime, had been working very closely with a ceramics company to actually develop a die that would have the same kind of performance in terms of quality and tolerances, but was significantly cheaper. These new dies are made of a combination of ceramic and cement. They actually take only half the time to develop as a regular steel die, and they're approximately half the cost. So we could bring a very high quality, low volume, uniquely styled vehicle to market within the price range that we targeted. Parts of the Vehicross are assembled on a very traditional moving assembly line. Then other parts of the Vehicross are actually assembled and done by hand, completely by hand.
Maybe some of the people that take the most pride in the Vehicross are the craftsmen that have been picked out to do the handcrafting in the assembly of the Vehicross. These people represent the cream of the crop of their trade.
They've worked on the line for 20, 25 years. The competition within the factory at Isuzu to be one of the assemblers of the Vehicross was pretty fierce. Without developing a different manufacturing process, it would not have been possible to bring the Vehicross to market.
Several weeks back, I had an opportunity to take my 9-year-old son to an amusement park in a Vehicross. And coming into the entrance, we drove through kind of the main street where everyone was waiting to enter into the amusement park. And it was astounding to see literally hundreds of people simultaneously turn their heads and watch the Vehicross as we headed down the main drag towards the parking lot.
It was amazing to me watching the people come up and just want to touch the vehicle.
Of course, the styling is very futuristic. It clearly is a style leader. In fact, it is in ID Magazine Design's top 100 designs.
We don't design fluff. So the design direction was tied very closely to the engineering and performance direction. As the name implies, Vehicross, we kind of think of it as a cross-trainer shoe. One of the areas that highlights the cross-trainer design of the vehicle is actually the exterior styling. The lower portion of the vehicle is made of scratch and dent-resistant polyurethane. It's very rugged. It's very good for off-road driving in terms of going through brush and potential things that could scratch the vehicle. You can drive through a lot of dirt and mud, and the actual design of the cladding keeps most of that at the cladding level or below, so it doesn't get up above on the sheet metal. In combination with that is zinc-plated steel on the sheet metal. which is very futuristic, which has a lot of tension in the design to really highlight more of an on-road, sporty type of feel. The angle of the hood is actually quite steep. It's, I believe, steeper than any other SUV that's out there right now. And what that creates, aside from a very aggressive look, is the potential for a lot of glare, a lot of sun glare from the hood up into the driver's eyes. So we took another piece of polyurethane and inserted that on the hood. It dramatically cuts the glare that goes into the driver's eyes. The concept being very similar to, say, a football player or a baseball outfielder who will put some black ink under their eyes to cut down on the amount of glare that they will see. The front of the vehicle is very consistent with the rest of our design and engineering approach in that form follows function. That's a very large engine. Cooling is extremely important for the kind of driving that we expect this driver to do. So we had to very carefully make sure that the grille opening was large enough to allow cooling for the engine. We wanted to keep a very good, simple airflow to keep a low coefficient of drag. We wanted to have efficient lighting in terms of driving the vehicle on-road and off-road. The ribbing on the doors is a very important design element, is a very important design theme. It helps create a clear distinction between the lower cladding being very aggressive and the upper sheet metal being a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more sports car-like. You'll notice that there are Allen wrench type screws that run all along the vehicle on the top of the lower cladding, the lower body side molding. And those are there to help reinforce and keep that cladding in place. We don't want to hide that structural element. That's part of the aggressiveness of the vehicle. That's kind of part of the heritage of what it means to be an SUV, is you can kind of see what the skeleton, so to speak, is like underneath it. And it's also very practical in that it makes it easier to change those body panels should you have an accident and need to replace one of them. The fuel filler cap is a very, very interesting, very unique design for an automobile. And that was inspired from two areas that may seem surprisingly disparate, but actually design-wise tend to have a lot of common. And that is some European motorcycles. The fuel filler cap had a very distinctive, very kind of high-tech design for those times. And it's also very, very similar to the fuel filler cap for a variety of aircraft, including fighter aircraft and the stealth bomber, for example. The rear door area is very unique on the Vehicross and is actually nothing short of an engineering marvel. We wanted this very clean, very advanced kind of high-tech design, and that didn't necessarily lend itself well to just hanging in the spare tire off the rear door. So what we did was we developed a scheme to actually fit it inside the door and still have the door be very easy to open and close. That really speaks to Isuzu's engineering prowess. There is not another manufacturer of an SUV right now that has the spare tire completely integrated within the rear door, not taking up any cargo room on the inside and not compromising the vehicle's approach or departure angle for performance. We thought it was very important to have an easily accessible, usable roof rail rack system because we anticipate the Vehicross buyer is going to be a fairly active individual. But the design of the Vehicross, the roof is very unique in that it has what we refer to as a lot of crown. A lot of the roof racks are designed to just sit on top of a flat vehicle. If we had taken that approach, we thought it really would have compromised the styling and the look of the vehicle. So we developed a very unique roof rail, which is standard on the vehicle, that runs over the entire length of the roof. And if you decide you don't want to use a rack, it just looks like a very nice integral design element. If you decide that you do want to do a rack, there are two hinged pieces that you actually just lift off, and under there is the attachment for the rail. The wheels and tires for the Vehicross are, again, very appropriate to the concept of the vehicle. They're P245 16-inch tires, which are mud and snow rated, so they have very good off-road ability, but they still allow for the excellent on-road handling and performance that we're looking for. One of the things that's unique about the wheels is that they're highly polished. And if you look at most SUVs, traditionally usually use a very dull or kind of matte type color. And again, we wanted to kind of signal the combination of off-road prowess, but at the same time having the sophistication of the look of a sporty vehicle on-road. The wheelbase for the Vehicross is 91.8 inches, which allows us to have actually a very nice package for a two-door vehicle. There is a lot of room in the back seat. And at the same time, what it allowed us to do was have a very short front and rear overhang. And that's very important in terms of the kind of terrain that you can travel on off-road.
One of my best friends is a doctor, and he can drive anything he wants to drive. I've driven Vehicross home once or twice. He's seen the truck, and he says, he's never owned a truck, first of all. He says, I've got to have that truck.
I have never gotten as much attention as I have driving a Vehicross. You know, I'll be driving along, and I continually get people honking at me, giving me a thumbs up.
It'll attract you from its appearance, but after you drive it, it's like no other SUV.
The Vehicross is built off of the chassis or the frame from the two-door Trooper, which is only sold in Japan. But it was very appropriate for use in this market because it offered a lot of stability, a lot of rigidity, which was going to be necessary for the kind of performance that we were looking for with the Vehicross. The Vehicross has as its power plant a 3.5-liter dual overhead cam V6 with 24 valves. The vehicle produces 230 foot-pounds of torque and 215 horsepower. What's really impressive is this 230 foot-pounds of torque occurs at below 3,000 RPMs. It's a very ideal situation to have in an off-road vehicle. Having low-end torque is essential to having good off-road performance.
Well, that's something that you notice right away when you get in it and you stand on the gas. It's got great performance, nice acceleration. It's got a good sound to it. It's not dead quiet. It's got a little bit of a good throaty sound to it. It's fun to drive.
The Vehicross uses a variable intake system. It has two separate sets of ports, and these ports allow for very efficient performance across the entire RPM band. Traditionally, without a variable intake system, the engine would have excellent performance at either one or the other, high end of the RPM band or the low end of the RPM band. And what the system allows us to do is avoid having to make that choice. The direct attack valve system on the Vehicross's 3.5 engine also greatly adds to the vehicle's performance and efficiency. This direct attack valve system allows for a more simplified layout and design of the vehicle's cams, which create less friction, there's less moving parts, and consequently more of the work that the engine does is directly translated into the performance of the vehicle.
From a perspective on steering, you have a fairly short wheelbase, and so the car reacts very quick. It takes just a little bit of steering, initial turn-in, and the car points, which is nice. Instead of taking the steering and turning, and then having the suspension roll, and then the car turn, it all tends to happen at once.
One of the truly amazing aspects of the Vehicross is its handling, both on-road and off-road. Traditionally, on-road handling, really good on-road handling, equates to horrible off-road handling, and vice versa is true. The way that we were able to achieve excellent performance in both characteristics was to go back and look at a lot of our off-road rally racing heritage and racing technology. And one of the biggest issues for SUVs for a lot of people is they have a fair amount of body roll. They have more body roll than a car does. This is because they sit up higher. And one of the ways that we overcame this was a very unique suspension setup that utilized monotube shocks.
The suspension's very compliant. It's got incredible shocks in it. That's one of the big things that I noticed, that how well it absorbs the bumps, but yet gives you a good turn-in, real nice, precise handling on a road or on a hard surface as well.
That particular shock absorber was actually first developed for motocross, for racing motorcycles, and it was then adopted to very high-performance off-road rally racing cars, like you might find in the Baja 1000. It's a very expensive shock. It's made of aircraft-grade aluminum to very exacting specifications. And what this shock does, the benefit to us, is it dissipates heat very, very quickly. which is a very big issue for any kind of a sport utility. And as you put the vehicle through some heavy handling tactics, the heat in a normal shock will build up, and what this does is this decreases the performance of the shock in terms of its ability to prevent body roll, in terms of its damping performance. So this shock that we have on the Vehicross has an additional cooling reservoir, so there's more fluid within this particular shock absorber. It dissipates heat much more efficiently, much more quickly than a regular shock, and this dramatically improves the vehicle's handling characteristics. The Vehicross uses Isuzu's patented torque-on-demand system, which is the only four-wheel drive system within the industry that actually anticipates wheel slippage and prevents it before it happens. All of the other four-wheel drive systems that are available on the market right now are set up to react to wheel spin once it happens. The torque-on-demand system in the Vehicross has 12 different sensors that it's monitoring continually. It's looking at the ABS position for each individual wheel. It's looking at the brake position. It's looking at the vehicle speed. It's looking at the throttle position. It's looking at a variety of different inputs. It uses these to continually evaluate where should the torque be between the front axle and the rear axle.
See, I wanted to find out exactly how that TOD system would work, so I got the car going in a circle where the whole car was starting to slide a little bit, and you can feel the transfer of the power starting to go to the front axle as well as away from the back axle. It's powering the back, but it also is transferring the weight to the front axle. It's trying to pull on both sides, but you have the car heavily weighted to one side. Then as you level out torque on demand, that front axle's really pulling hard now in that situation. It just pulls you right out. It launches you.
The advantage of torque on demand is you don't have to decide anything. It decides everything for you. Basically, it is evaluating when does the vehicle need to be in four-wheel drive? When does it need to be mostly a two-wheel drive vehicle? You don't have to decide any of that. The vehicle is evaluating this in every 20 milliseconds.
It's good handling, it steers good, it's got good performance. The basic engine is a very nice package, plenty of horsepower. It has the capabilities of being a full-on rally type of vehicle.
The Vehicross has a very large interior package, one that a lot of people actually don't even realize how large it is if you're standing around looking at the vehicle. It's very comfortable for both of the front passengers. There's a lot of leg room, headroom is ample, and actually for passengers in the back, there's a very, very comfortable back seat. In fact, the back seat is so large that for a two-door, it has more room in the back seat than some of its four-door competitors. The Vehicross is the first SUV to incorporate Recaro seats. One of the nice things about Recaro seats is they really are designed for spirited driving. They have very good lateral support. They kind of mold around you as you sit in them. And another aspect to this is that there's a thigh support on the bottom of the seat that you can actually pull out that gives you even more support for more spirited driving.
It's really good to see a production car being made with nice seats in it. I mean, really good seats that support the driver, because that's our link to the car. That's your connection there, and the tires to the road.
The combination of red and black interior is very derivative of Ferrari, Porsche, high-performance European sports cars going back to the 30s and 40s. We utilized a lot of carbon fiber look materials within the interior to also give it a very advanced, high-tech type of look.
It's comfortable. It kind of fits you. It goes where you want to go, and that's what I like about it. You can tell that right away in a car. If it does what you want to do and you feel good in it, you're probably going to have a good time driving it.
The media has been absolutely fantastic, or the media exposure we've received has been absolutely fantastic. Perhaps the most impressive has been Open Road magazine recently that shows the Vehicross on the cover in Future Shock Best Handling SUV Ever. And it inside on the article it actually says it puts the sport in sport utility like no other vehicle. And that's representative of a consistent theme that we're seeing played back from the media following our press long lead when we flew 20 or 30 of the magazine writers out to Hawaii and gave them a couple of days free rein with Vehicross through the jungles of Hawaii and the beaches and across the open country.
All the major books were at the event, and every one of them had very favorable comments. Motor Trend, Car and Driver, the two biggest ones, obviously, and then Automobile and Road and Track.
It was very interesting because these guys and women are hardcore journalists. They do this for a living. You're not going to do anything with smoke and mirrors to impress these people with a vehicle if it can't do or can't deliver on what you say it can do.
I thought they'd be typical press and be a little more conservative and not be so outgoing and give so many accolades to the thing, because generally these guys are pretty jaded. They've just flown to France and done the new Porsche, or they've been somewhere in the United States doing the latest and greatest in automotive technology. And every one of them that I talked to was very, very surprised that the Vehicross worked as well as it did in all the conditions they were driving it in.
Funnest aspects of being involved with this vehicle is looking at what the journalists are writing. And just looking at the headlines speak volumes. Headlines that say the sexiest SUV ever, the best handling SUV ever.
My favorite one was somebody referred to the Vehicross as the love child between a sports utility and a sports car.
There have been some fabulous quotes on Vehicross, but perhaps my favorite is one in Car and Driver magazine, where Car and Driver states that the Vehicross will definitely run autocross circles around your father's big butt Suburban.
I think this is a polarizing vehicle. You're going to look at this and people are going to say, I love that truck. Other people are going to look at it and say, I wouldn't be caught dead in that truck. You know what? That's the best recommendation we could possibly have, because I want vehicles in our lineup that polarize people. I want people that cannot live without them.
One of the many reasons to be excited about this vehicle is we really don't believe it has any competition. I can't imagine what somebody would want to cross-shop it against. There's really nothing out there that offers the same kind of features, that has the same kind of benefits, that has the same kind of feel, that even remotely has the same kind of look, all packaged together in a relatively affordable price.
We think the Vehicross will improve the brand name for Isuzu because it'll make people take notice. It's a vehicle that you can't just look the other way. It will get attention. It'll stop showroom traffic. And even if we don't have enough to sell, the spin-off onto other products, the halo that it creates, the technology from the Vehicross that we put on other products, will encourage people to experience the feeling and handling and driving characteristics of the Vehicross in our other model lineup.
The advantage to having a Vehicross on the sales floor, nailing it to the floor, as we say in the business, is primarily the fact that it serves as a showpiece for what the franchise is all about. As an example, gee, if they build something like that, with that kind of handling or that kind of technology, imagine what this Trooper must be like. Or imagine what that new hardtop Amigo must be like.
We have a number of print publications that we're in, Details Magazine, Men's Health, Wired Magazine, and we probably have more covers on the Vehicross than any vehicle we've introduced in the company's history. We have an exciting campaign coming out on the Vehicross. The two spots actually are the same spot utilizing two different punchlines of humor. What we hope to create with these two spots is, number one, break through the clutter.
Hey! You left your wallet on the trunk!
And number two, have people create a buzz at the office water cooler talking about what they heard or what they didn't hear.
Hey! You got a tail light out!
Introducing the 215 horsepower rally sport inspired Isuzu Vehicross. Theoretically, it's still a truck.